What's up guys, welcome back to another weekly outlook where I will go over my main pairs and see what we're up to for next week and see if we can catch any setups. So let's start off with the dollar index on the weekly time frame. What can we see? Well, of course, that we are weekly bullish. We traded up higher and we got a pullback back in towards the discount prices. We tapped a demand zone, we took liquidity, and now what also happened is that the order flow changed bullish on the weekly time frame. So for me, it's quite clear that we could trade up higher here on the weekly time frame because everything on the checklist says that we could trade up higher. So going over to the daily time frame then, what can we see? Well, after tapping this refined demand zone and taking liquidity, what happened is we traded up higher and we also switched our order flow bullish, with this demand now being in control, and this demand now also could push us back up higher. Now the only thing that is not in line is our trend on the daily time frame, which is still bearish and could still push us down lower to make a new trend low. So if we take the premium versus discount from the swing high until the swing low, we can also see we now tapped premium prices over here. We grab some liquidity above the highs, so it could also be that we now trade down lower to that swing low. So for me, there are two options. Either we now trade up higher in line with that order flow to make a new, or to swing bullish again, or we just see that the 4-hour order flow keeps on being bearish and we just trade down lower and break this bullish order flow and trade down lower in line with the daily trend. So going over to the 4-hour, let's see what we're waiting for then. So the trend for me is also still this one, the same as on the daily time frame, with this our swing high and this our swing low. And we took liquidity, and after that point we switched order flow bearish, with this being our supply zone over here. So now what could we expect? Well, we took some liquidity, so next week I'm expecting of course a little bit of upside until this overall range of supply, and either from here we trade down lower or we just continue up higher together with the daily and weekly order flow. So that's my game plan. So definitely this move up higher, but after we trade in towards the supply, then we could either see a reaction, and that's what we're waiting on the fractals to see what we're going to do, or if we break that high, we could then expect some further upside for next week. So going over to EURUSD, let's start off from the weekly again. So on the weekly time frame, we took some liquidity, which caused us to turn order flow bearish, just the same as on the dollar index, and now we could start to trade down lower, trading towards what? Towards the premium price or discount prices from this weekly leg, so towards this weekly liquidity. So that would be nice to trade down lower, but we got to keep in mind we have an open supply with some more liquidity above the highs, so that's something we could trade to before actually trading towards those discount prices. So keep that in mind. Going over to the daily time frame, what can we also see? Again, the order flow has changed bearish here on the daily time frame as well, but again the daily structure is bullish. We took liquidity and it is low, we tapped discount prices, so I wouldn't be surprised if we traded up higher, making a new daily swing high and tapping that higher time frame supply, taking liquidity, and then trading down lower towards that weekly discount prices. So let's go to the 4-hour time frame and let's see what we did over there. So again, same structure for me here. We took liquidity underneath these lows, and after we took liquidity, we then switched the fractal and order flow over here, with this being our demand zone in control. So again, I'm expecting after this liquidity and this daily order flow to push down lower towards this demand, and from this demand I will be looking at some longs again to take possible longs towards the swing high. If we do not see confirmation from this demand zone, I could expect us to just trade down lower together with that daily and weekly order flow, which is bearish. If we start seeing some pushbacks up, then I could look for those actual long setups in order to trade up higher again. Going over to GBPUSD, again from the weekly time frame, we took some liquidity, which definitely could be a point where we could reverse from. And if we take a look, the structure is bearish, we are inside premium prices, we took liquidity, and now we also created the bearish order flow as well, with that supply being in control. So again, now after taking this low, I think, let's see, we didn't yet took the low out, but that could happen next week. And yeah, now we could just see a reaction up higher, and from the supply trade down lower again, in line with the overall trend where we should trade down lower. Or if that doesn't happen and on the daily the order flow switches bullish and we just trade up higher to grab some more liquidity before we trade down lower, that's also possible. But at the moment the order flow is bearish on the weekly, and I'm just expecting downside. Looking at the daily time frame, the order flow is bearish from this supply zone. And if we take a look at the structure, then this is also bearish structure as well. So let's remove all of these demand zones over here. And now what can we see? So this is our structure, which is now bearish. If we take the PVD from the high until the low, we can see that around that previous week, that there is a premium prices. So what I'm now expecting is a pullback up higher in towards that supply zone, in towards the premium prices, and from there on the 4 hour I will look for confirmation to short towards the lows. So going towards that 4 hour, again 4 hour is bearish, the order flow is also bearish, and we have an open supply over here, and what is also there, some liquidity over here as well. So if I take the same PVD as on the daily time frame, because the structure is the same from the high until the low, it perfectly aligns. So what I'm now expecting is to trade up higher towards that supply zone, and from there I'm taking short setups 100%. Now are longs possible? So let's see, we did have taken some liquidity need this low. There still is some liquidity over here though that we gotta keep in mind, but overall this demand zone is now in control, and this demand zone could still push us up higher. So I'm going to keep an eye on this demand to see if it's going to push us up higher. Overall, I think it's a bit too risky to take the long setup, because there is some like actual liquidity laying underneath the lows, which you could take out before moving up higher. And I just think that the short from the supply, premium prices and liquidity is the highest probability setup. So that's also what I'm waiting for. Going over to EURAUD, let's start off from the weekly again. So on the weekly time frame, you can see we're bullish. We tapped the discount prices after this move up, and now we could make a new swing high. We did take some liquidity above this high, but as long as we just are pushing up higher and the order flow is bullish, we could just continue to trade up higher. So that's also what I'm expecting. On the daily time frame, what can we see? Let's remove everything to make it a bit more clear. So this is our daily swing. We tap discount prices perfectly over here, and you can see that the order flow is actually bullish now, with this demand zone on the daily being in control. So actually, one second, actually I'm looking for upside here, because the order flow is just bullish. We have been respecting the lows at all time, and I think we could just continue to trade up higher. We now made a small wedge down lower. I don't trade wedges, but this could help us with our analysis. So from this demand zone and also the monthly level as well, we could see a higher push. So going to the 4 hour time frame, we're also bullish. We took some liquidity underneath this low over here, and then after that we just kept on trading up higher. We then took some liquidity underneath all of these lows over here, and after that the order flow now turned bullish, with this demand being in control. So what I'm going to be waiting on is a pullback in towards demand, and if we see like confirmation on the 1 hour time frame, I'm definitely longing in towards this supply zone and liquidity above the highs. So that's my game plan on EURAUD, and for me it looks really clean as well. Going over to GBPAUD on the weekly, it's a bit different. So we took liquidity above the highs, and as you can see, this is like major liquidity, and we have this demand zone open with this yearly level and as well as these liquidity lows. So I still expect some downside on GBPAUD to trade down lower, and from this demand I could expect some upside again. So on the daily time frame, we are bullish and we already tapped discount prices, but as you can see, all of the lows are still open. The order flow is bearish, so I'm still expecting downside until we hit this point of interest, and then I'm 100% taking longs again. How does this look on the 4 hour? So same structure, same discount prices. We took liquidity near the lows, but the order flow is still bearish with this supply being in control. Also, after grabbing liquidity above this high, the fractal turned bearish, and now from this supply you could just keep on looking for shorts, in my opinion, to just trade down lower and take out all of these liquidity lows. So that's what is possible. The most A+ setup is in line with the weekly trend, daily trend, and 4 hour trend, and these discount prices, and that is waiting. It won't be for next week, I think, but waiting for the yearly level and this demand. And if you can then catch this long setup, that's one of the best setups I've seen in a while, but that may not be for next week. So at the moment, we can still look for those short setups. So going over to EURCAD on the weekly, we can see again that the structure is bearish. We took a lot of liquidity above the highs, but the order flow has just been bullish, I think. And now the order flow actually switched bearish after breaking this low. So this supply is in control. So we could now expect a move down lower here, definitely on the weekly time frame, because this is our swing high. And we should expect to respect that high because that's our swing high, and we should trade down lower towards the swing low because we're swing bearish. We took liquidity, so I'm definitely looking at downside here on EURCAD. Let's go over to the daily time frame. So we're daily bullish, but as you can see, we have a lot of liquidity near the lows. The order flow now is bearish and the discount prices are open, so we could trade towards that. So from that supply, I'm definitely looking at downside here. Going over to the 4 hour time frame, we are like bullish, and I think we also tapped discount prices, if I'm correct. We did. So on the 4 hour, it's not the best because the order flow also is bullish here on the 4 hour, and this could just push us up higher. So what I'm waiting on is, let's say if we get a push up higher, this is now our low. If we break that low, then the order flow changes bearish with a supply zone in control, and then I will look for shorts in line with the daily and weekly time frame, even though that we are 4 hour bullish and structure and we tap discount prices, because the higher time frame is just stronger than a lower time frame, and I want to trade in line with the higher time frame. So that's what I'm waiting for on EURCAD. Let's go over to GBPCAD on the weekly time frame. What's visible? So we took a lot of liquidity above this high, but again, this is internal liquidity what I'm looking to take out for. And if you look at the order flow is just cleanly bullish still. We took liquidity near the lows, so I'm definitely expecting upside on GBPCAD. On the daily time frame, we are daily bullish. We took liquidity, we tapped discount prices, we tapped this demand zone, and then we pushed up higher. I didn't take any longs over here because I was still waiting for this demand to get tapped before looking at any longs. And as you can see, we also didn't break the high yet, so I still think we could see that push up higher to make the actual break of the high, get a candle close. So that's also what I'm waiting for. And also now, because we tapped this demand, because we took liquidity near the lows, what am I waiting for in order to take a setup? Let's see. So actually the best thing to do is wait for the daily fractal in order to take the long setup. But I think if we have enough 4 hour confirmation, I could already take the setup. Why? We're 4 hour bullish, we tapped discount prices, we tapped this demand zone, we took liquidity underneath the lows, and it just looks super clean if we could take the long setup, if the order flow changes bullish, which is also in this case bullish. So at the moment the order flow is bullish here, so if we, for example, see another break of the high, then we could look for those longs, maybe to take out first all of this liquidity, maybe this liquidity, but overall we could target the new swing high because there is enough room. So that's what I'm eyeing for next week on GBPCAD as well. Let's go over to the yen basket. So on the yen basket, yeah, let's start off from the weekly again because this one is a bit tricky. So for me, we are weekly bearish. If you then take the premium prices, We already tapped the premium prices. So what could that mean? That we could trade down lower to the swing low, of course. So we took a bit of liquidity, which caused us to move down lower. We left some liquidity, we took that, and now we again trade down lower. You can see the order flow is bearish and this weekly supply is still in control, which could still push us down lower to at least take out these lows. You see a small reaction from that yearly level, but again from that monthly level now expecting a real reaction towards what we really want to trade to, and that's as liquidity. We do have some more liquidity above the highs and a supply zone, but that's only if we switch the order flow bullish, then we could start to look for those point of interest before moving down lower. But at the moment the order flow is bearish, so look for downside. On the daily time frame, we are daily bullish. We have all of these liquidity lows still open though, so if the order flow is bearish, it would be nice to trade down lower. We also have this demand zone which we could tap, so let's see. So we have the yearly level, which caused us to move up higher and also caused us to have a daily bullish order flow. We did tap this little supply zone and took some liquidity above this high, but overall the only move that we can possibly catch next week, in my personal opinion, is this move down lower towards this demand, because from this demand we could either trade up higher because the order flow is bullish, or we could again trade down lower, continue the overall trend. So yeah, overall I think just a small short is the best. Let's see on a 4 hour what this looks like. So again, 4 hour trend is kind of far away, but let's take a look at premium versus discount from the high until the low. So we have the premium prices over here, no special point of interest over here, no real supply zone, no real point of liquidity. So we not really something we should look to trade towards. It keeps like it's still the premium prices, so we could still trade towards that, but overall I think we could catch a small short from the supply, this liquidity just trading down lower towards this demand. But from this demand you gotta wait for confirmation to see if we're going to trade up higher towards the premium prices. So that's looking at the fractals over here. If they turn bullish after tapping this demand, you could look for upside here on the yen basket. If not, then you could just expect it to just trade down lower overall with the trend. So that's it for the yen basket. Let's take a look at euro yen. So on the weekly time frame, we're bearish. We tapped this extreme supply zone, and you can also see a reaction off of that. So I could just expect us to trade down lower towards this demand. On the daily, you're also bearish. You took a little bit of liquidity, you tapped extreme supply, and after tapping extreme supply, you turned the order flow bearish, with this supply now being in control. So with this supply being in control, you can already see a reaction off of that supply pushing us down lower. So I'm also just still looking for euro yen downside, trading down lower, possibly all the way down until this low. So going back to the 4 hour, we are also 4 hour bearish. Previous week I was looking for shorts from this supply after taking this liquidity, but we didn't tap the supply zone, so that's unfortunate, and that's why I'm still looking for that one more swipe of the high, and then I want to take these short setups down lower. So that's also what I'm waiting for. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to set my alert there, right over there. Once we tap that, boom, I'm looking for the fractal break down lower like this. Boom, 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 fractal break, and now I'm taking a short, possibly to trade down lower again. So that's my game plan on euro yen. Looking at GBP yen on the weekly first. So after that weekly liquidity, we did get a reaction like expected. Also, we're bearish, we tapped the supply, so I'm just still looking at that downside here on the weekly and overall on GBP yen. So on the daily, we're also bearish. We still have this open supply zone, but we took a lot of liquidity above the high, so it could already push us down lower like you see over here. So let's remove all of the noise that we drew out in the past. So we had this supply zone which pushed us down lower, and now this supply zone is in control for me. and this could push us down lower. So I'm now waiting for a little push up higher, and from this supply zone I'm still looking at downside. The order flow now is bearish, so you can see like on those yen pairs the order flow is really strong. If it's bullish, you can see you just respect it. So now it's turning bearish, so I'm just trading it down lower in line with that liquidity, in line with the trend and with that premium prices. So I'm just looking for a downside on GBP yen. On the 4-hour time frame, we are still 4-hour structure bullish, but that could change really quick. Maybe next week if we see like a swipe, then a pullback towards, for example, the premium prices, which could be somewhere over here. We tap this supply zone then around at the yearly level as well, and then this is the perfect trade. So we get the candle close in order to make a swing bearish. We get that pullback towards premium prices, we get the fractal break, and boom, this is a very, very clean setup, which I'm also trying to trade. You can also see that this supply zone takes a lot of liquidity above these highs, so definitely a strong supply zone. You could possibly also catch this little long towards the supply after taking liquidity, but overall it is possible because you have demand, you have liquidity, and you could trade towards premium prices and an open supply. But I think the best setup is to trade in line with the weekly and daily order flow, which is, and also 4-hour order flow and possibly also trend. And that's just this short setup, and that's one of the best setups you can catch next week. So that's also what I'm trying to be catching instead of a small long setup. So going over to my last pair, gold, I think longs are still very, very clean. So you can see overall the order flow is just bullish, so just longs on gold on the weekly time frame. On the daily time frame, you're bullish. You have this demand zone, which is pushing us up higher, and also over here you created a new demand zone after the daily fractal break. From this demand, you could push us up higher towards the new swing high. So that's also my game plan. On the 4-hour, we have the same swing. You can see it a bit more clear. We took liquidity, tapped this demand, made a new demand, made a new demand, made a new demand, and now we have a new demand, and you can just clearly see the order flow, and from this demand I'm just looking at some upside. So you could personally already look at some 4-hour setups like this, just swing it up higher towards the new swing high. Or you could, for example, see for a small pullback on the 1-hour, let's see. So the 1-hour is bearish, but that doesn't matter because on the higher time frame you could see upside. So we do have some liquidity in these lows, which is great in order to push us up higher. We have that demand zone over here, which is also nice to push us up higher. So you could, for example, wait for something like this. Boom, a pullback, taking liquidity in an initial reaction. We swiped initial reaction, tap the discount prices, tap this refined amount, then a 1-hour fractal break, and then boom, that's your trade, trading up higher. And that's also one of the best setups next week, and also that's what I'm trying to catch. So like a lot of setups next week, I think it's going to be a great week. So let's wait for next week and let's catch some trades. See you guys. Ciao.